Hello, travel biz owner. Welcome to my corner of the travel industry, the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're ready to have fun, be inspired, get clarity, and take action in your travel business, then you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're new around here, my name is Rita Perez. I'm the host of this podcast. And if you've been one of my secret, not so secret BFFs, hello again. It's nice to be in your car, your shower, your bedroom, your dining room table, wherever you happen to be listening to me right now. I have heard some of those stories before. So I hope that you are having a wonderful or as wonderful of a day as you can, because not even counting things that have been happening in the headlines, 2026 is already a wackadoodle year. Recording this podcast, this first podcast, I'm like, how did we get here? How did it become Thursday night and it's in the middle of the night and in a couple of hours you're going to hear this going live to you? I don't know. Thankfully, there was a really great Facebook post that went off earlier this week that gave me inspiration for today's topic, which is we're going to be talking a lot about it. It's essentially what inspired this episode today, because I keep hearing similar things over and over again. And I'm like, unfortunately, if you don't like Instagram, or if Instagram has not been working for you, I mean, this is a complete phrase, but there's so much nuance to it. You're probably not doing it right. And there are so many little nitty gritty things. And so I kind of want to go through what were the biggest qualms that I had seen. What are the things that you might be doing on Instagram that's the reason why Instagram is not working for you? And then just kind of give you some alignment about what you should be doing on Instagram. Instagram personally is one of my favorite platforms. I am scrolling there all the time. I'm liking there all the time. I'm interacting with people that I've bought from before, so I know that it works for different brands to keep in touch. But I think the biggest offender for why Instagram isn't working for you is that you're trying to sell all the time on Instagram. And that, yes, you can sell on Instagram, but it's not because you're a salesperson on Instagram per se. Instagram is a social media tool. What's behind social media? People want to feel connection. They want to be they're a part of something. They want to essentially they want to feel something and relate to you or relate to something that you have out there. And if you are just putting buy this, hire me for this, do that, you're not opening any sort of floodgates for somebody to be like, hey, let's be buddies or come into my world. So you have to treat Instagram differently than you would maybe some other platforms that you have gotten traction on. But I feel like that's probably one of the biggest qualms with social media. The other biggest qualm that I would say is that you're using Instagram to find customers and clients, but that's not what Instagram's for, which again is another really blanket type of statement. And there is a lot of nuance that goes with that, because yes, there are some people who find a lot of clients from Instagram. What I found for me personally is that there needs to be more strategy than just posting when it comes to social media. And I feel like this is what irks me so much when I see some posts about travel advisors wanting to hire a virtual assistant for social media, because I don't think that's the best use of a virtual assistant. Really, what you need is a social media manager, because if you're just trying to get somebody to just put posts for you on social media, you're wasting your money. Putting posts, and especially sales posts, are not going to generate revenue for you on social media. You have to be more active on social media and engaging. And that's like we're going to go through a lot, but this is just like my initial big thoughts. I did want to make sure that you know that you are cordially invited to summer camp at sea that's happening this June 20th through the 27th. If you have ever wanted to sail with your personal photographer, that's me. You're going to want to make sure that you are attending this, because not only are you going to get some of the best photos because of me and some of the best video footage because of me, but you are also going to be able to check off your to-do list, your business to-do list, because of us all being together and holding each other accountable. I've been having lots of conversations recently about you just needing to be in the right room so that you get stuff done. And this really is one of the best rooms to get things done. So really hope that you take a look at that. The link is down in the show description, and I cannot wait to get some of the work done because I was super productive myself at summer camp at sea last year. So what were some of these big qualms that kind of happened into the Facebook group? So I would say the top challenges were a lot of people just not understanding or just have never learned how Instagram works. There was a lot of talk about like consistency and time management, low or no engagement, which I'm right there with you with that one, because the past 2 weeks, but you have to remember what happened the past 2 weeks. It was holiday time and I was putting out posts almost on a daily basis. And I'm like, what is going on? But then I did a little bit of research and was finding that it just wasn't my account. Every account was experiencing this, like where there were barely any likes. If there were likes, there were barely any comments. And I feel like this is kind of like the shift in social media also, is that we're just not interacting. I mean, if you take your own behavior on social media, are you commenting a lot on posts? Normally, what we're doing instead of commenting is we're liking posts. I know I do a lot of saving of posts and I do a lot of sharing of posts. So I might not comment that much unless I want to get something. And that's kind of what I was noticing in some of the other posts, is that like if I was seeing comments, it wasn't necessarily people engaging, but it was somebody had mentioned like comment this word and I'll send you this resource, or I'll send you this thing. That's what did really well as far as commenting. So that's also something to kind of note, and especially in the past couple weeks, if it hasn't worked, it's because it was the holidays and nobody was really paying attention to any posts. A lot of people seem very confused, or they feel like creating reels is very time consuming, which depending on the types of reels that you're creating, it can be time consuming, but this is why I always teach things to be like super simple and super easy. So if you need a resource, let me know, because I do it like, if I cannot find an easy way of doing something, I'm not going to do something, like point blank, period. So I try and find the easiest route, especially when it comes to reels, and especially like when I'm thinking about the types of reels that I made on the agency side. It was super easy. Put a couple B-roll clips that I filmed together with some text, and then like think about a caption, boom, bada bing, like in a couple minutes that can be done. Whereas like other things, if you needed to do a like voiceover, which I love voiceover reels, but those for me personally are very time consuming, because the way that I do voiceover reels is that I write out a script first, then I record the audio of the script, and sometimes it does take me a couple times because I am no perfectionist either, so I'm just trying to do my best. It takes me a couple rounds to record and get the exact audio that I want. Then when I have the audio, I import that into Canva. Now I know there's probably easier ways to do this. This is just like how I do it. I put it into Canva, I upload all my clips, and then I kind of stitch things together. Because I know a lot of people will also just do random B-roll, and I'm pretty sure this can probably be a little bit easier. If you're not concerned like what's on screen at the time, you can just like put a couple clips together and then just put the voiceover. So yeah, it's going to depend, but there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's multiple ways to create reels. Some of the responses were also that you didn't use Instagram, that you focus on Facebook instead, which is really interesting from somebody who does not use Facebook. And I also want to point out here, like if you are trying to grow like a Facebook page, those are dead. In my opinion, Facebook pages are really dead. Do I post things on my Facebook page? Yes, but it's because that post has already been cross-posted on Instagram. So I just put it up there, but I don't expect much when it comes to Facebook. Where the gold really is when it comes to Facebook is through having some sort of group. So you can take what you will from that as well. Kind of like backtracking here too, thinking about the reels. Something that I am focused on trying this year, and I'm not sure if it'll be this month or next month, is repurposing some of my reels, because not all of my reels are going to be great for the audience on YouTube. But if I'm doing like face to camera, like I'm talking straight to camera, or if I have like different scenes that are happening and we're speaking on them, those are going to be really great for YouTube Shorts. So I want to see how my content does on YouTube Shorts, because I mean, while I love Instagram, it has been frustrating me as well. And so I'm like, can I get better results when it comes to YouTube Shorts? So that's an experiment that is TBD. We'll see what happens there. There's low reach, views, and growth when it comes to Instagram. That is like the biggest qualm of Instagram right now. And I don't feel like the platform is trying to do anything to improve that, which is why I personally have my sights sets on YouTube, but I don't know YouTube, so that's going to be a whole other learning curve. So I'm like, I'm just going to stick with what I know really well. And it is funny because I do a lot of testing when it comes to Instagram, and I'm like, wow, this thing that I thought was going to do really great flopped. And this post, which I couldn't care less about, like really took off. Like, your guess is as good as mine sometimes. No leads and conversions. And even if you are asking for sales, I'm sure that this is probably what's happening a lot, because you're asking for the sale all the time, or that's the only thing that you're doing. So this is why people don't want to buy from you on Instagram, because you're not showing them anything else other than like sales and deals and promos, and they can get that from the supplier partners. Like, you're not showing what the value is with working with a travel professional. Content creation, what to post, that you've been running out of ideas, you're not really sure what will resonate. It is all experimentation for even me. I think anybody who's on social media, it's kind of like just experimenting with what is going to work well. This is also why I've created that monthly strategy, the content strategy sheet for the cruise content library, because it lists out content ideas, hook ideas, and it's not just for social media. I also include relationship building ideas, networking ideas, and macro content ideas, because this is like Instagram is just one part of the whole marketing ecosystem that you have to have nowadays. Like, being successful on one platform really isn't a thing like it was, like, I would say 5 to 10 years ago it was. The algorithm always changing, which it's true, but it's not true, because I feel like on one of my episodes recently, I've mentioned like the algorithm that you really need to pay attention to is, what do your ideal audience members want to see from you, or what's important to them? And if you tune in to what's important to them, they're going to listen and they're going to pay attention. They're going to watch. They're going to interact. They're going to do all the things. But you have to be tuned to what they need, which is a lot. Like, I didn't do ranting. There were a lot of ideas that were last week for the lead generation. How to generate leads in 2026 episode that I had out last week. But this is part of it, is that like you need to know who your people are, and you need to do some sort of an analysis on your ideal client. I think a lot of it is also that perfectionism and overthinking. I mean, I do the same thing about overthinking and perfectionism. And that's why, like, sometimes I don't show up all put together. That did take a while to gain that confidence. Like, I just need to show up. Like, it's more important for me to say the thing or write out the thing than for me to wait, because you need the boost, you need the oomph that I have. So I would say, when it comes to, like, those are your biggest qualms, here's what I'm seeing that's going wrong on your feed. Like, you're thinking that what I just mentioned is the problem with Instagram, but here's what's actually what I see being the problem. Number one, you might be using supplier graphics. And I don't know how many times I have to say, stop using supplier graphics, because you do not work for the cruise lines. You do not work for the suppliers. Now, if they have unbranded graphics, unbranded photos and things like that, use those, because you can market the heck out of that and like use your own branding and use your own messaging with that. But if the cruise line logo is on there, if the theme park logo is on there, if the DMC logo is on there, you are marketing somebody else's business and not your own business. On top of that, most of the time, these graphics that suppliers give you are very salesy and promotion heavy. That is very like old school marketing. Like, marketing doesn't work like that anymore unless you are a supplier. It just doesn't work for small businesses. It doesn't work for service providers. Like, though, it's not going to work for you. So if that's what you've been putting on your feed and you haven't been getting traction, it's because of that. I know it's super simple and super easy to use. That is why your Instagram is failing you right now, because you are posting supplier graphics. This next one is like flipping nails on a chalkboard to me. If you are not charging service fees, fine. But do not put that on your Instagram that you are free or that you're promoting your free services, because the only people that you are going to get wanting to use you are the tire kickers, are the people who don't have the money to spend. So they're going to be looking for that interior cabin that's only going to give you $30 in commission. Stop doing this. Like, that is not a selling point to use your service. You have so much intellectual property in that brain of yours. Not only do you have intellectual property, you also have extremely valuable relationship with supplier partners. And I don't care like how new you are in this industry, what you do has a lot of value. And so I never want you to undercut. If you're not able to charge fees, or if you don't want to charge fees, so be it. But do not put all over, like plaster on your website, plaster on your social media, that you are free, because you are targeting the people that will never work with you anyways. Point blank, like, rant over. I hope you get the gist of that one. The third thing that you probably might, I'm trying to use probably might because I know not everybody is doing all these types of things. This kind of goes along with the episode from last week, is that you don't really know who your ideal client is. Because if you knew who your ideal client was, you would know what content to put out there. And I say this because it took me a while, like thinking about the agency side of things. It wasn't until I finally honed in on my niche of cruise retreats, and that I was going to be working with small businesses that had communities that wanted to come together for a retreat, or that I was going to be working like with more corporate entities that had teams that wanted to put together a cruise retreat together. I know instantly how to market to those different but similar groups. I also, like, it just helped me to be able to be like, okay, I'm only speaking to retreat runners, retreat leaders. I will never talk about destination weddings. I will never talk about family stuff. I will never talk about like African safaris, because that does not lie within the realm of those cruise retreats. And so you need to do the same thing. Now, this is going to be a little bit more difficult if you're a little bit newer or you're still trying to figure out like what that niche is, which is why the episode last week is going to be really valuable to you, because it does help figure out like where a lot of like those high value, like people who are already investing in things who might want to also invest in your travel service, where you might be able to find them. But really, like, you have to, I love going back to that onion layer activity. If you don't know about Shrek, one of my favorite movies, Donkey and Shrek have a conversation and they're talking about peeling the onions, and we have a lot of different layers, and so you have to dig in deeper. So like when I think about retreat runners, a lot of them don't even know that you could run a retreat on a cruise ship. So that was one of like my biggest talking points, and how much more cost effective it is to run a retreat on a cruise ship versus like at a hotel property. So and there's like different angles that you can talk about these different messaging points really, and also like be a little bit funny with some trending audio. Like you don't have to be all dancey and all that, but one of my favorite things and like ways to connect with people is that trending audio where like I'm just whatever the voice is saying, I'm also saying it along there, so it kind of like looks like I'm saying it, but I'm not actually saying it, because you know that it's not my voice. So I like being able to play along with those different types of things when it comes to like who my audience is. A big thing for me too is like, because they didn't even know that this was something that was possible, I did a lot of like showing retreat runners like what do the different spaces look like on board. Like you could have your retreat in this casual beige meeting space, or you can have like floor to ceiling windows that look out a river in Europe or an ocean in the Caribbean. Like you get to pick which one looks a little bit more appetizing to you. And of course, I mean, being on the water is a little bit more appetizing to me personally. So really getting to know like what really irks and like what are their hopes and dreams. And especially there are things that like people have no idea, no clue that is possible out there. That is what you are responsible for. That is the type of content. But it's not just, because there's also this shift, because I have been seeing a lot of like educational content, but I feel like the educational content that was really powerful and like got a lot of traction a couple years ago is not doing as well this like now in present day. And that's because people don't want to be spoken to, which is a part of like one of my next points. Like people, like they want to be a part of something. They don't want to be spoken at, they want to be spoken with. So how can like you can include them? Like a lot of reels that I'm seeing that are really popular is where people are just talking face to camera, and it's like they've already been talking to a friend, like somebody that's already been on the phone for a little bit. And so instead of being like, do you know what the top 3 hotels in Manhattan are? It has to start off a little bit more conversational. And I know that this is a muscle, again, that has to be flexed a little bit. So you have to figure out what style is going to work for you. So I'm trying to think off the cuff here and improvise. Like, instead of saying like, these are the top 3 hotels in Manhattan, like, oh my gosh, I just stayed in New York and these are my favorite hotels that I saw or I stayed at. So going it from that angle, and you might not be like OMG or oh my gosh. So you have to put it into your words too and figure out like, what is that? What is your ideal client? How would they say or think about that? So like you do have to do quite a bit of research. And I'm going to give you the cheat code on this. Typically, you are a version of your own ideal client. So if you think about the way that you travel and what's important to you, you can better discern what those messages have to be in social media. So hopefully that helps just a bit. My next point where it ties in with the speaking to, it's because you're also selling a little bit too much, because every single post And I hate this because I know so many of you, and I see your post and I'm like, why are you selling in every single post? You cannot do like that's a turn, that's the ick as the kids say it now. You're gonna get people the ick on social media if you're selling all the time. So if you are speaking too much at your audience, like speaking at them and not like bringing them along, not like you're like creating a community or a sense of belonging, this like sense of I get you, I understand you, I also hate this, or I also love this, or I also cannot wait to do this. And I feel like that's because you are selling too much. Now, sales is definitely, that is your shtick as a travel business owner. You have to sell in order to make money. But what I feel like what you're forgetting also goes in with that number 3 about your ideal client is that I feel like sometimes equally or more important, you have to remember that you are in a people business. So do you like, if I told you about that sleazy car salesperson, you're probably all getting the ick now. You're probably all like starting to like shudder thinking about that sleazy car salesman. Now, I do believe that if you're concerned about being that person, you're probably not being that sleazy car salesperson. But at least in real life, but maybe because you've seen other people doing all this selling in their social media, you think it's working for them, so you should do it too. And that is not correct, because that's not working, because people don't want to be sold to. And this happens across any like industry. People want to get to know you a little bit more. And anytime you sell, those will be the worst posts. Like they'll get the least amount of likes, least engagement, least in terms of sales and things like that. Unless you do it like really unique. Like there was a really unique Dunkin' Donuts and Wicked social media video that had come out. And I'm like, this is flippin' brilliant marketing. And I may have shared it, I'm not sure. But they were selling, obviously, Dunkin' Donuts without selling Dunkin' Donuts. And that's pretty much how you kind of have to do it as well. You kind of need to sell your services without saying, hey, hire me for your services. Now, can you do that? Yes. Periodically, you can do that. I like to say, wait 3 or 4 posts, then do the selling in terms of like, then say like, hey, book a discovery call. Hey, do this, do that. But you cannot do it in every single post. You're not going to be able to build a community that way. And especially on social media, building a community, building your audience is going to be huge. And this is probably why you may be frustrated on social media also, because you're waiting for it to generate all these leads for you. That's not what social media is for. And I know social media people are going to come at me, and I used to be a social media person myself. And again, like that is a very blanket general statement, and there's a lot of nuance because I know people do get clients from social media. But it's not solely from posting on social media. How I have found brands and interacted with brands is typically because I saw them on somebody else's social media first, which now we're getting into like a little bit more advanced techniques, because it's not just enough for you to post. If you are only posting on social media expecting results, stop posting, because you could save so much time and effort by just stopping posting if that's all you're going to do. Because on social media, you've got to be social. And so you also have to go on other people's posts, like make meaningful comments, save. What I would love to encourage you to do also, if you are not taking advantage of stories, which is a 24-hour option. So pretty much if you're recording a story, it doesn't go on your feed and it's only up for 24 hours. So it's something temporary. So I love stories. Like even more than looking in my feed, I look in my stories. I don't really scroll too much, quite honestly. Like, I'd rather look at these stories that are flashing because I feel like I get to know people on a much more personal level. I feel like I'm pretty open and personal on there myself and just letting you know, like, what's happening in my own life or what are some of the frustrations or what I'm going through as well. So if you are not leveraging stories and you're frustrated with posting, maybe it's time that you took a look at trying to do a couple of stories. Now, I will say stories are a little bit awkward in the beginning because you're not really sure what to talk about. And my best advice for that is just to do them. See what everybody else is posting on their stories and talking about on their stories, because it's also not enough for you to just repost, reshare things on your stories. You also have to come into your stories. And so I just love being able to have and I have conversations with people a lot. Like, there is a TikTok expert on Instagram that I talk to. Like, we have Broadway shows in common, and she just had a baby, and like anytime she posts the baby's so stinking cute, so I'm always like saying how adorable the baby is. And so I will have that type of relationship with other people. So that's taking it to like the next level. Like, if you've gotten to like a good posting cadence, now you've got to do like that engaging. You've got to talk, you've got to be social. And especially if you don't have the time to go to networking events in person, this is how you network with other people, by having that interaction with them in their direct messages based on something that happened either on their feed post or in their stories. This is like, I can't tell you, and like, not even like stories sometimes, like maybe I come across a post. I remember there was and I think I've mentioned this story before, I was hoping to put like this really big health summit on board, like a cruise ship. Didn't work out because of the pandemic and all that, but whatever. But how it started was I reached out to the person who ran that event via Instagram. And I mentioned like, hey, I have this crazy idea. I just attended your event. I've been doing this special protocol for quite some time. And like, I know the biggest thorn in our side is that we're thinking about travel because we're on such tight restrictions. And so sometimes travel feels impossible. Like, have you ever thought about putting like some sort of group trip together where people who are doing this sort of special dietary needs type things would be able to go and not have to worry a single thing because all the menus are taken care of for them? And her ears were piqued by that pitch. We got on a Zoom call. She's like, yeah, I want to proceed with this. And so we kind of moved forward with this. But again, you know what kind of got in the way. So it's also being able to, because those are the tactics that I also use on LinkedIn, where you're not necessarily pitching yourself, but you see that there's a need and you see where there's a part of the larger community that can benefit. And so how can you leverage that with the right types of positioning? I was selling without necessarily selling. Like, I genuinely wanted to help the community out. So again, thinking in different angles, really thinking outside of the box. Number 5, when it comes to like the things that you might be getting wrong on your feed, is that you're not saying anything different than other people. And this is going to be huge when it comes to my next list of items of what you need to be doing on Instagram. Is that like so many people are saying similar things, and now you also have to compete with all the AI junk that's out there, is that you have to have your own unique viewpoint. And I'm not saying that you have to create your own unique viewpoint. You already have your own unique viewpoint. Your life is most likely incredibly different from my life, even though we may have some similarities here. But how we were raised, the people that we've been around, our life experiences are all different and all unique. And so you have already a unique viewpoint that you need to put out there. You just need to use your voice. And I know, especially if that's a brand new thing for you, it's a muscle that you're going to have to flex. So you just have to keep practice. Like, there's no other way for me to say it than just saying that you have to do it. It's going to be weird and uncomfortable and probably really sucky at the beginning, but you will get better, I promise, because especially like me looking back at some of my early social media days, and I know some of you have been looking or listening to like my original podcast episodes from back in 2021. This might be a little rough. Rita from 2021 has definitely evolved into Rita that is here in 2026. So you have to go through like that ugly period. It's kind of like, I think about people that like cut a lot of their hair or shave off a lot of their hair, and they have to just wait for it to grow out to get to where they want it to really be. So you just have to get through that funky period first. So what do you need to be doing in order to like have some success is really start showing up. And definitely in stories, if you're not already doing that, showing up and showing yourself. If you are not putting yourself forward, I know like there's been this whole like faceless trends, and I'm like, I'm not buying it. Like, that's not how I'm going to make purchasing decisions is with faceless type things. Like, I'm going to buy from real people who have something to say, who I have something in common with. Like, those are my favorite type of people to support. I'm also going to be taking recommendations from people as well. So it's this like combination of things, but the number one thing that you really need to be doing, if you have not like gotten, like your face is nowhere on your social media, your face needs to be on social media, friend. And I know sometimes, especially if you have insecurities, that's easier said than done. You've just got to do it, and you've got to get comfortable doing it. And if it's maybe you like test this out like in front of like some friends and family members and just record yourself, or I don't know what it might be, because for me, if there's something uncomfortable that I need to do, I feel like over the years, like I don't want to do it, but I know that it's going to benefit me. So I just do it. I just rip the Band-Aid and I do it. And I might like huff and puff all the way till I do it. And then I've done it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did the thing. So like that's, you just gotta do it. If you are not doing it, you are holding yourself back. And actually, if you don't want to show up, if I'm being like fully transparent, Instagram might not be your platform if you don't ever want to show up. LinkedIn actually might be a better platform for you if you don't, because like LinkedIn personal posts really do a lot, but you might not necessarily need to have photos of you or videos of you. It does help in terms of like being beneficial to you, but there's not as much of that going on LinkedIn as there is Instagram. So if I've just converted you to LinkedIn, that's also a win for me. And the purpose of that is because there is so much AI junk that's coming out there on the social medias that like people want to know that it's really you and not this AI personality that somebody created on Midjourney or one of the other apps and things like that. Talking about your interest and values that are not just travel is going to be a really big thing. It has started to be a really big thing. Like there is, I don't know if anybody else follows, her name is Betsy Grunch, or Dr. Betsy Grunch, pardon me. She is a neurosurgeon. I think she's based in Atlanta. And so she talks a lot about like neuroscience and spinal surgery and medical things and things of that nature, but she also talks a lot about like parenting, her health and fitness journey. She's been talking a lot about like something happened with her dogs a couple months ago, so that was face forward. I think she recently underwent like some home renovations, so she was talking about that. And I may have started following her, excuse me, because I was interested in some of like the neuro stuff that she was talking about, but it's also interesting to see like these different facets of her. So that is, and it's not just her, there's a lot of people who are kind of doing that. It's very TikTok, I think is what I've heard, but it's not that social media is just social. It's now very interest based, and it's also, I feel like, very human because we're not just one thing. So especially in the travel industry, we talk a lot about travel, but that's not the only thing that we do. And it's funny because I tested some of these things out during the holidays, and those were some of my best performing like reels that I had out there that had nothing to do with business or the travel industry. So you might see a couple more of those coming out there. But also part of like showing up and showing yourself is to be able to show and talk about the different facets of your life, because this helps up that relatability factor. Instagram is really loving like this is how I did it, or I made this mistake and this is what I learned from it, or this has saved me so much time. So especially if you're able to talk from your own perspective and what has happened to you, that is going to be really valuable content for connecting other people with you on Instagram. And then I kind of already talked about this, but showing up on stories is something else that you definitely need to be doing. Something that I've heard that might be gaining some traction again this year. And it's funny because I had heard somebody mention about lives getting popular again in 2026. And then Samantha Brown brought back her lives on her Facebook. So I don't know if you remember back in pandemic times, I love that Samantha and her husband would go on and they would kind of like replay some of their episodes of Places to Love, and they would give you kind of like sneak peeks or behind the scenes of like what was actually happening during that episode, or like just some more things to bring some nuance. And obviously that stopped and they decided to bring it back in December. And I think they're going to bring it back for a couple months now. And so when I had heard that that was possibly like a trend that was coming back, and then I saw her do that, I'm like, maybe there's a little bit more weight to that, because that used to be like a couple years ago, like lives were a really big thing on Instagram, and then they did not become a big thing. Then they kind of like went out because short form content was so popular like that, like get a quick hit and then run. And I think it's still popular to an extent, but that's something else that's kind of coming back in 2026 is that long form content, that macro content that you always hear, hear me talking about. And so this may also play into some factor in terms of like not a lot, but some of my Instagram content, it's repurposed from my long form content. That helps me save a lot of time and sanity, if you know what I mean. So thinking about that, that's also a trend. Like maybe you've been frustrated because you've been putting too much weight on Instagram and the social media platforms, where you should be putting more weight on networking and meeting people first, because that's the other thing with Instagram. Like if you don't have any sort of following and you're trying to build a following, but you're not a content creator by trade, like you are going to be spinning your wheels and it's going to be so frustrating for you. So you need to figure out how you're going to get other eyeballs onto your social media without just depending on the algorithm to do it for you. And that's what I mean by like you need to be doing some networking and collaborating on social media so that you can get onto other people's platforms, and so that new audiences can have some exposure to you and what you have to offer. So I forget where I kind of came from there, but I know I was talking about I was talking about how first, if you are trying to build a following, you have to focus on getting people to follow you, because if you're trying to put out all this content and you don't have a lot of followers, it's all right, but you're going to be so frustrated, because then the next part of that is that if maybe this is not something that you want to do, kind of like combining the in-person with the digital, then maybe you want to focus on putting your efforts in this long form content and just being able to repurpose content onto your social media feeds so that you're not putting as much effort and you're just reusing content that you've already created. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. I'm kind of running through my notes here, but I think like that is really the gist of what I wanted to mention. And I've kind of said some things that I really wanted to say to you. And I hope like I'm not trying to, well, I guess, yes, I am trying to ruffle a little feathers, a couple of feathers, because I want to give you the honest truth, because that is the most important thing for me. Like I like over and above and beyond like sales for my own business, I want to give you the truth of what is actually working and what is wasting your time. Like I remember somebody scheduled a power hour with me wondering about social media, and I mentioned to them, I'm like, actually, you have a really great network. I wouldn't worry about finding clients on social media. I would focus on that network and just posting updates and sharing some expertise on your social media. That's not the advice I would give to everybody, but in her specific instance, that is the advice that I would give. So I'm just going to spit out the facts where I feel the facts need to be spitting out at. So hopefully this has been really helpful to either like calm you down and stop worrying about social media, give you also a little bit of confidence to be like, you know what, I am going to test this out and see if this works. Because social media is a bit of a long game as well, especially when we're thinking about it as a nurture and not a meet or attract phase. You have to first do that first work about meeting the people to get them on the social media, and then the nurturing happens, and then the sales come. So it's not an instantaneous type of thing. Could it be? Sure, but that is the exception, not the rule, which kind of gets me back to where I came from in this whole episode. Oh gosh, I forgot about, this is based on a book, and it's not the Steve Harvey book. It's based on a relationship book about being the exception and not the rule. And sometimes you think there's a rule for things, or sometimes you think that you're the exception to the rule. And I feel like a lot of people think that the rule of Instagram is that you're going to find a lot of clients through social media. And in my personal experience and what I have talked to many advisors about is that is the exception, that's not the rule. So you have to find your clients in other methods and use Instagram where it needs to be used appropriately in terms of nurturing your audience. So let me know what you thought about this episode. Ooh, I also wanted to go over, because one of our Australia listeners mentioned something about I was using terms, and I'm not sure if they have the same terms in Australia. So let me see. Hi, Rita. As a listener from Australia, I would love you to explain some of the terms or abbreviations you use, as often as I have no idea, like the 1099 or whatever it was referred to. Could you please let us overseas listeners what you were referring to, as I'm often driving when listening and can't Google things. Haha, love your show. Beck. Thank you, Beck. So in this specific instance, 1099 in the United States, that specifies like it's like a tax technical term for an independent contractor. So when we talk about being a 1099 contractor, or if I just mentioned 1099, that's what I'm referring to as being an independent contractor. So I hope that clarifies. But if you need something else, just let me know. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Feel free to share this out to anybody else who might need some real talk. And I will see you back here next week. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Remember to check out the show notes for all relevant links and resources from today's show. See you next time.